solemn agreement.
Out of World War II came a new international order. Under the Cairo Declaration and the Potsdam Proclamation, Japan was required to return territories taken from China. Yet how that commitment was carried out would later become a focal point of dispute. China therefore maintains that Diaoyudao, as an affiliated island of Taiwan, should have been restored together with Taiwan.
开罗宣言里面规定了，三国之宗旨在剥夺日本自1914年第一次世界大战开始以后，在太平洋所夺得和占领之一切岛屿，日本所窃取于中国之所有的领土，列入满洲、台湾、澎湖群岛等，归还中国。日本亦将被逐出于其武力和贪欲所窃取之所有土地。波兰公告第8条规定，开罗宣言之条件必将实施，而日本之主权必将限于本州、北海道、九州4国及无人所决定的其他小岛之内。
开罗宣言和波茨坦公告本身是国际义务的来源，是正式的政府首脑发布的宣言，同时它又纳入了日本投降书，所以它是条约和单方义务双重的国际法的效力支持。
Some argue that documents such as the Cairo Declaration were political statements rather than formal treaties. Yet they were later compiled and reproduced in official documentary records, alongside other international agreements of the Second World War era. Ukeru Mogasaki, a former Foreign Ministry official and now head of the East Asian Community Institute, believes the core issue today lies in public understanding. He says many Japanese are unfamiliar with the post-war settlement and its implications for territorial questions.
連合国側が日本のものだということを言った時において初めて日本の領有権となると言ってるわけですから。ということで昔の歴史はそこで切れてるんですね。ここが多くの日本人の知っていないことだと思います。
所以钓鱼岛是跟台湾一起回归中国的二战以后，因为马关条约的无效，因为中国的战胜。
In the years immediately after World War II, Japan's powers were strictly limited under Allied occupation. Professor Hu De-kun showed us archives from that period, preserved under the Republic of China era, before the founding of the People's Republic of China.
这张图论证就是琉球、钓鱼岛都不属于日本。第二张图论证是钓鱼岛不属于琉球。
On January 29, 1946, the Supreme Commander for the Allied Powers, or SCAP, issued Instruction Number 677. It was an administrative measure under occupation, not a determination of sovereignty. The instruction outlined the area under Japan's administration, limiting them to regions north of 30 degrees latitude. Okinawa and other southern islands were placed outside that boundary. SCAP-in 677 did not explicitly mention Diaoyudao, but it defined the scope of Japan's post-war administration, laying the groundwork for subsequent arrangements. In practice, these arrangements were later adjusted, becoming a source of dispute. In June 1946, the permitted operating range for Japanese fishing vessels was extended by 90 nautical miles. The waters surrounding Diaoyudao were included within that area. China later requested a revision of these limits, which went unanswered. China did not accept any arrangement that altered its claim of sovereignty. In 1947, the nationalist government included the waters around Diaoyudao within its designated fishing zone. Between 1948 and 1949, Chinese naval forces detained or sank 29 Japanese fishing vessels, many of them operating near Diaoyudao. Japan points to two post-war agreements as central to its position. The Treaty of Peace with Japan, commonly known as the San Francisco Peace Treaty, and the agreement between Japan and the United States of America concerning the Ryukyu Islands and the Daito Islands. Some scholars argue that key legal questions arising from these agreements remain unresolved. In 1951, Japan signed the San Francisco Peace Treaty with 48 countries. The People's Republic of China was not invited to participate. Premier Zhou Enlai stated that any treaty affecting Chinese territory without China's participation would not be recognized by the Chinese government.
它的内容和缔结程序在国际法上都是有问题的。
Article 3 of the treaty placed the Ryukyu Islands under United States administration, without addressing questions of sovereignty. Diaoyu Dao was not explicitly included in this arrangement. Professor Luo Huanxin notes that under Article 3, Japan agreed to concur in any proposals by the United States to place the Ryukyu Islands under a United Nations trusteeship. No such trusteeship was ever formally established by either the UN General Assembly or the Security Council. Instead, the United States exercised administrative control over the region.
就联合国托管分为普通托管和战略托管，普通托管呢是要大会批准，战略托管呢需要安理会正式批准。就是琉球自始至终没有提交联合国托管，既没有联合国大会同意，也没有安理会同意。
2 years later, in 1953, the United States Civil Administration of the Ryukyu Islands issued Civil Administrative Proclamation No. 27, expanding its administrative area.
在钓鱼岛等作为台湾的附属岛屿与台湾一并归还中国的前提下，还将这些岛屿纳入其行政范围，这有违国际法律文件。
从大的方面而言，也是整个冷战的形势，就是想在那里建立军事基地来对抗苏联。所以从那个时候开始，就在建立一个他在东亚维护霸权的一个岛链。
在琉球也就是在冲绳驻军，是美国的重要战略选择。这个战略选择既是美国施展它的所谓亚太战略的重要保障，也是美国构建它围堵中国的海上第一军事岛链的重要节点。
By the early 1970s, the situation began to shift. In 1971, the United States and Japan took a decisive step. Washington and Tokyo signed the agreement between Japan and the United States of America concerning the Ryukyu Islands and the Daito Islands. The agreement transferred all and any powers of administration, legislation, and jurisdiction over the Ryukyu Islands to Japan. The transfer covered an area that included Diaoyu Dao.
It's an intentionally ambiguous treaty that John Foster Dulles, who was Truman's special representative to write this, came up with, but it's the problem that has caused so much unease and tension today.
那个条约不及第三国是一个最基本的法理，是吧？那你中国没有参加，你肯定不能处分中国的，涉及到中国的任何权益或者是义务的，所以中国完全有权不认可这样的一个协议。
Professor Luo raises a key question. If sovereignty was never transferred, then what exactly does administration mean?
你是一个空中楼阁嘛，对吧？
实际控制并不是等于主权。如果等于主权的话，那美国它可以完全把琉球归并到美国版图内。
These arrangements also raised a deeper question. If the status of Ryukyu itself remained unclear, how could the status of the surrounding islands be determined?
サンフランシスコ条約においてもその後のアメリカの姿勢においても領有権、この島は日本の領有になるということは一度も言ってないんですね。
China consistently objected to these arrangements.
Chinese duty is about unite.
News of the 1971 agreement sparked protests. From Hong Kong and Taiwan to North America, students and overseas Chinese communities mobilized in what became known as the Baodiao movement. Baodiao means protect Diaoyu Dao. Many of the organizers produced their own newspapers and journals, which played a key role in promoting the movement. A former student activist recalls those events half a century later.
是中国的领土为什么要由美国政府来处理，而且交给日本？这是很奇怪的一件事。
At Tsinghua University's Baodiao archive, boxes of letters, pamphlets and newspaper pages record the surge of activism. Today, Xianyang Ye returns to donate materials from that period. Among them is a full-page advertisement published in the New York Times on May 23, 1971. It's an open letter to US President Richard Nixon, funded through small donations from Chinese students across US campuses.
就是每个人捐5块、3块、10块这样积累起来的。这个里面你可以看到谁捐了多少，哪个学校等等的啊，签了名的啊。你看捐5元的、1元的，愿意捐钱的，然后愿意这个出力的啊，联络的都有这个记录。然后每个人捐了多少钱，以招公信。威斯康星大学的同学呢，就特别说，我们还要做一首这个战歌。滚滚狂涛东海之遥，屹立着一群美丽的小岛。风在吼，海在啸，中国神圣领土钓鱼宝岛，象征着我们。
Later that year, Nobel Physics laureate Chen-Ning Yang testified before the US Senate. Drawing on historical and geographical evidence, he argued that Diaoyu Dao had not been part of Japan.
美国呢，它首先呢就是要确保和日本的盟国关系和在琉球的军事基地，那么另外呢又想和中国呢试探改善关系，因为他们当时战略上主要对抗就当时的苏联威胁。
In November 1971, the US State Department clarified its position. Administrative rights would be transferred to Japan, but the United States would take no position on sovereignty.
We call them the Senkakus. We don't take a position on them.
Beyond the official statements, another conversation was beginning to emerge, one captured on camera. In the United States, independent filmmakers Christy Neber and J.J. Osborne set out to explore how the dispute was understood in the West. Their 2014 film, Diaoyu Islands, The Truth, offers a rare Western perspective on the issue.
This is the historic truth that the Japanese government continues to ignore today. In this connection, it is interesting to note that only in 1900 did Imperial Japan adopt the name Senkaku for these islands that had always been known since ancient times by their Chinese name, the Diaoyu Islands.
Because the world needs to know the truth, because they do not know. And since the Western media is biased against China, the truth is always not being told.
Christy Neber passed away in 2021. We spoke to his collaborator, J.J. Osborne, about what led him to this subject. When Osborne began researching Diaoyu Dao, he approached it as many in the West do, by examining documents. There was a treaty, there was a transfer of administrative rights, there was a paper trail. At first, he says, it appeared straightforward, but the deeper he looked into what lay behind those documents, the less clear it became.
A piece of paper is not the end of the story. Anybody could take this watch from me, and then another person could take it and hand that person a piece of paper and say, hey, I'm administering this watch for you, right? Then they give it back to the person later. And I say, hey, he stole that watch from me. That's my watch. Originally, the watch was stolen.
For Osborne, a document doesn't change the fact that the watch was taken in the first place. He points to 1895, when Japan incorporated the islands. 3 months later, the Treaty of Shimonoseki was signed, under which Taiwan was ceded to Japan.
Even though they claimed terra nullius, it happened to coincide perfectly with the absorption of other Chinese territory.
Osborne says the legacy of war continues to shape how the issue is perceived today.
And the fact that the Chinese have not felt like there's been a real apology for the way that they were treated makes an issue like this even more important, because it truly is symbolic of whether or not Japan as a nation is willing to say, hey, we shouldn't have done that. You know, that was wrong, right? We apologize. We're very sorry.
The post-war arrangements were meant to settle the past. Instead, they left questions that remain unresolved.